Hello, BookTube. Who's up for a mail haul? I have a modest 5-book stack that was waiting for me when I got back from my grueling workday today. Uh, I just want to sit down in my easy chair, crack open a light beer, and take it easy. An hour and 15 minutes of work is backbreaking. Anyway, I thought we'd dig right in. Oh, there's my old lady. There she is. I thought we'd dig right in and see what kind of gold we might have. So we'll start with this one here. What is this? Weird feel to it. An opening longitudinally. Why is that? Why is it opening longitudinally? Oh, because it's got some sort of. Oh, it's got some sort of invoice. Okay. Have any other paperwork? No? No other paperwork? No. No other paperwork. So it's just a thriller. Fault Lines by Thomas Locke, and a very nice looking. It's gold tinted there on the cover, and it's raised. Very nice looking paperback original. Oh, hang on. Sorry about that. I can't just ignore when she has to shift or wants to move around. I can't just ignore it anymore because she doesn't really know what her hind legs are doing. So I have to sort of watch. But it's all right. It was minor this time around. So what if we see here? What if reality is only the edge of possibility? There isn't much that can throw Charlie Hazard off balance. Well, with a name like that, I would assume not. Why can't I be called Charlie Hazard? But the mystery woman with the striking eyes and intense request to follow her now is about to shake his world. Knowing little more than her name, Charlie leaves his post as a guard at Satellite Beach Community Center for what he thinks is just another risk containment job. Is that what the kids are calling it these days? But Gabriella, an experimental psychologist, has far more in store for him than protection duty if the two of them can survive the test. Reese Clausen relishes her work at the Combine, with a capital C, and all of the perks and power that come with it, including the ability to manipulate perceptions. But the Combine never anticipated this mind-shifting technology. If Gabriella's experiment succeeds, the Combine would be destroyed, and Reese will never allow that to happen. Okay, so so Fault, that doesn't strike me as the first book at all, and it looks like there's all sorts of blurbs here for something called Trial Run, which looks like okay, Trial Run. This is Fault Lines. Trial Run and Flashpoint were both earlier books in the Fault Lines series. And it sounds like I'm going to need to know them before I can make any sense of this. But I will contact the publicist and see if she thinks that's true. And in the meantime, I'll read the book because as I mentioned on this channel before, I kind of think that the litmus test of any book in a series is, can it stand on its own? I think it's a weakness if they can't. Even though some of my favorite, books in series definitely cannot stand alone. So I'll give it a try anyway. The premise sounds energetic enough so that I'll give it a try even before I read other books in the series. So let's move on. Let's move on to this one here. Okay. This is called Impossible Saints, a nice stained glass window cover by Clarissa Harwood. And what have we got here? So this comes out. Oh, it comes out in January. It comes out next year. All right. It's set in England of 1907. It's a novel that burns as brightly as the suffrage movement it depicts. It's a suffragette novel with the emotional resonance of Tracy Chevalier and Jennifer Robson. Okay. So, escaping the constraints of life as a village schoolmistress, Lilia Brooke bursts into London and into Paul Harris's orderly life, shattering his belief that women are gentle creatures who need protection. He's obviously never met one before. Well, isn't this going to be a voyage of discovery for him? Lilia wants to change women's lives by advocating for the vote, free unions, and contraception. Paul, an Anglican priest, oh, maybe he hasn't met one before, has a big ambition of his own to become the youngest dean of St. John's Cathedral. Lilia doesn't believe in God, but she's attracted to Paul's intellect, ethics, and dazzling smile. As she finds her calling in the militant Women's Social and Political Union, Paul is increasingly driven to rise in the church. They can't deny their attraction, but they know they don't belong in each other's worlds. Okay. All right, that's interesting. Impossible Saints. I wonder what kind of play this is going to get. A historical novel about the suffragette movement. Okay, all right. Let's see. Let's move on to the next one here. Like a finished copy of something. Oh, great. Okay, yes, it is indeed. It is a finished copy of Ilan Pape's The Biggest Prison on Earth, which is a history of the occupied territories. I think I read about this. I think I read about this to you when I got the advance copy. This is the author of his previous book was The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine that got everybody talking. Based on groundbreaking archival research and eyewitness accounts, Pape's investigation of the bureaucracy of evil explores the brutalizing effects of occupation from the systematic abuse of humans and civil rights to the IDF roadblocks, mass arrests, and house searches to forced population transfer and settlers and the infamous wall that is rapidly turning the West Bank into an open prison. Providing a sharp contrast with life in Israel, The Biggest Prison on Earth is a brilliantly incisive and moving portrait of daily life in the occupied territories. And this comes out soon. This is out probably in bookstores already. I thought it was fascinating, and I've been emailing and FaceTiming with a bunch of people in Israel about what they think of him, what they think of his work. I've been emailing with a couple of scholars of the subject in England, including one who has a book coming out real soon. another book on the subject coming out real soon. I love reading about it. I love studying about it. I love thinking about it. And I'll be doing something with this book. I don't quite know what it is, but I'm not gonna let it go. I'm not gonna let it pass by. I just don't know what form it will take. Great though. Glad to have a finished copy. Let's see. What is this next one? As we wind our way towards the end here. What is this? Oh, great. Oh, fantastic. Okay, this is the paperback copy. Is that right? Yes. Okay, it's a trade paperback original. I think we saw this on this channel before. This comes out in early September. And it is going to be a paperback original of something called Frankensteins Dreams. Connoisseur's collection of Victorian science fiction. I'm glad that it's coming out as a paperback original. That will encourage. It's going to be what, $22. It'll encourage people to pick it up and experiment, and that's great. So what have we got here? Mary Shelley, of course, but then you've got Edgar Allan Poe, The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar. You have a bit from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. You've got some authors like William Henry Rhodes and Florence McLandberg, who are forgotten now, but had very active, lucrative careers. Thomas Wentworth Higginson. I won't, I promise, go on at mind-boggling length about him. Coupled by Edward Page Mitchell. There's an excerpt from Two on the Tower by Thomas Hardy. There's an excerpt from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There's a piece by Ambrose Bierce, another piece by H.G. Wells. There's a bit story, the story Wireless by Rudyard Kipling. And The Horror of the Heights by Arthur Conan Doyle. How wonderful. Oh, boy. All right, so the editor of this collection is Michael Sims, and he obviously knows what he's doing. Let's find out about him, shall we? Is that what I just gave you I read less than a third of what's in here, but the stuff that I saw, you often see this in anthologies. If you see as many anthologies as I do, you look at them, And you can get a sense right away if the editor is phoning in the job, because often that will be true. I hate to say it, but it's often true. Versus the editor who actually has a vision, who actually wants to put together a really interesting thing. And you can tell that if you see enough of them, you can tell right away when you're in the hands of an editor who really knows what he wants to, or he or she wants to do. So let's see what Michael Sims says. If his biography doesn't reflect that, I'm going to have egg all over my face. So he's the author of The Story of Charlotte's Web, which the Washington Post, the Boston Globe, and other venues chose as best book of the year. The Adventures of Henry Thoreau, and Arthur and Sherlock. Oh my, Arthur and Sherlock I reviewed. No wonder I recognized his name. I reviewed that for the Christian Science Monitor. He edits the Connoisseur's Collection series of Victorian anthologies, including Dracula's Guest, which I read and loved. Oh, well, all right, good. So I'm vindicated. The Dead Witness and The Phantom Coach. He lives in western Pennsylvania, but let's not hold that against him. It's a pretty creepy place. No wonder he's doing all these creepy anthologies. And then the last one. This is the last one for this little... Oh, okay. All right, fantastic. This is another copy of... David Bentley Hart's new translation of the New Testament. It's a very, very simple, almost stark cover. I already have a copy of this, and I've been sort of tentatively dipping into it, especially the notes, just to see what kind of a thing. Let's see here. Did I read this already to you? I don't remember if I did or not. David Bentley Hart undertook this new translation of the New Testament in the spirit of etsi doctrina non daretur, as if the doctrine is not given. In other words, reading it cold, reading it as a text, reproducing the text, often fragmentary formulations without argumentation, augmentation, or correction. He has produced a pitilessly literal translation, one that captures the text's impenetrability and unfinished quality while awakening readers to an uncanniness that often lies hidden beneath doctrinal layers. The early Christians' sometimes raw, astonished, and halting prose challenges the idea that the New Testament affirms the kind of people we are. Hart reminds us that they were a company of extremists, radical in their rejection of the values and priorities of society, not only at its most degenerate, but often at its most reasonable and decent. Right, so this is starting to sound like a bit of a rabble-rousing translation. Quote, to live as the New Testament language requires, he writes, Christians would have to become strangers and sojourners on the earth. To have no enduring city, to belong to a kingdom truly not of this world. And we surely cannot do that, can we? He asks. Oh my. He lives in South Bend, Indiana, and he is, as we say, cruising for a bruising. Wow. Oh my. Okay, so this comes out in late October. I don't know what it says about our 21st century society, but I've already had 2 paying editors immediately, politely, but very firmly and immediately say, no, not interested. But there's no chance I'm going to let a new translation of the New Testament go without comment. I want to be in that conversation. So I guess I'll review it for Open Letters Monthly. And that's just fine. That will give me extra space. So this comes out in October. Oh, that description sounded very, very spiky. All right, so we have a new translation of the New Testament. We have a paperback anthology called Frankensteins Dreams. What Victorians thought about science. Utterly fascinating. Then The Biggest Prison on Earth, a finished copy of Ilan Pappy's new book about the occupied territories. Then Impossible Saints, a historical novel about the suffragette movement. And then Fault Lines by Thomas Locke, which sounds energetic, but it also sounds like I'm coming in at mid-party. So I'm going to have to ask around about how much more I need to read. And that's it. That is a nice quick mail haul for today. And I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.